Good news, digital world. I have gotten rid of the creaky chair that I had in last episode. I had a choice of 6 chairs to choose to bring into my little studio here and record. And when I listened back to the recording, apparently I picked a creaky chair. So I thought, that's a bit annoying that all my chairs creak like that. Oh no. I've just had a look. Only one chair creaks. And it was the one I picked. So I've picked a sturdier one. I'm shaking in the chair as we speak, and I don't think you can hear it. So that's good. However, I'm not one for a stickler for quality, as you can tell from these episodes. If you hear a creak, if you hear an echo, if I cough, splutter, if I forget what I'm saying. Welcome to episode 30 plus of Spliced In Later. You are probably used to it by now, and if you're still here, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And we're going to power on with another exciting episode as we begin another week in lockdown fun as we continue to watch movies from our archives, waiting for the movie theaters to open up. Today's is a little bit of a personal achievement, I think, because I'm going to do something which is a continuation of something I did earlier. Now, in the early days of this show, and indeed in a lot of episodes, you'll have heard me promise that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a month devoted to Marvel. I'm going to talk about all the movies on my 100 movies bucket list. I'm going to rank Disney movies. I'm going to rank action movies. I'm going to look into some horror films. I've made too many promises, and I can't keep track of exactly what it is I'm supposed to be bringing to you as a promise. As we go forward, I'm going to try and fix that. I'm going to abbreviate some ideas, shuffle things around so we can bring some of that content that I alluded to so many times ago. I've been doing this podcast for 6 months now. It has just occurred to me, 6 months. That's not bad. I didn't think I'd last 2 weeks, so well done. Hooray! Give yourselves a round of applause for nothing. But listening to me, that's good. Thank you. Thank you all very much. No, today I want to talk about James Bond again, because I promised last month that after Daniel Craig's No Time to Die James Bond movie got shifted to November, that I was going to talk about a different Bond every month or so leading up to the countdown. So hopefully when we got to November, fingers crossed, we can see the movie. April's almost over. It has come to my attention I have not done anything of that sort for some time, but enough time has passed, I think, that we can revisit that topic without it becoming stale, without people thinking that I am just a James Bond podcast, James Bond YouTube channel. He's very important, but there's so much more to talk about. However, we're going to do it. And I'm very excited to talk about this one. Last month we talked about Pierce Brosnan, specifically GoldenEye, and why he was my favorite Bond, and what about him and his movies appealed to me. But now I want to delve into a slightly different Bond, a slightly different topic and genre, because this one angers me sometimes in the misunderstanding of it, and I think some assumptions are being made about this movie and this actor that needs to clear the air while we're here. So today we're going to talk about the Bond movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I believe came out in 1969, starring Australian George Lazenby in his one and only appearance as James Bond. Now, when I was first getting into James Bond, this was back when I saw the old Brosnan movies and realized there were so many Bond films out there, and perhaps I should see them. The only person I really knew at that time that was into James Bond was my father. I remembered he had some of the films. A lot of the times he'd have on The Man with the Golden Gun, Goldfinger, a lot of very old classic James Bond movies. So I believe I went to him and I asked about James Bond movies and what were good and what were bad and how to get a hold of them. And he was going, oh yeah, this is good, that's good. I like Sean Connery, I like Roger Moore. But he specifically pointed out that there was one movie called On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And he said, that's not a very good Bond film. He didn't like it. He thought it was not good at all. He didn't like George Lazenby. And his general assumption to me was, obviously it wasn't good because he only did the one Bond movie and it was so bad that he never came back to do it again. As a youth, as a young person, I took what my father said as fact. And I went away going, wow, the world hates George Lazenby. The The world hates on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Well, yes and no. Looking into more and more people's opinions, you do tend to find that the assumption seems to be if you only make one movie, if you only play a character one time when other actors have made several movies and played the character several times, that you mustn't be good. That's why you didn't continue in it. I would like to say right now that On Her Majesty's Secret Service is probably the best Bond film for Bond parameters. For me personally, it's not my most favourite Bond movie. Of course, as we know, that's GoldenEye. However, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is absolutely in my top 5 Bond films. I love it. I think it's a great film. And I think looking into it, having given it a rewatch recently in preparation for this episode, that it is definitely the perfect Bond movie in that it amplifies everything that is good about James Bond, everything about his world, his adventures, the characters he interacts with. As a whole, it is everything perfect that needs to be in a Bond film without being weighed down by certain character specifics that characters bring to the role, the actors bring to the role, I should say, weighed down by silly over-the-top supervillains with grand schemes of destroying the world that are just completely unbelievable. Now, before I talk about it, I just want to say, though, that if you are looking to get into James Bond, I wouldn't recommend On Her Majesty's Secret Service as the first movie you watch. More on, I would say, once you've seen a couple of Bond films and you realize, yeah, okay, this is something I could get into, you should watch that movie once you like James Bond and the world and the characters and everything. In the same way that I was talking about British sitcoms and recommending a specific episode for a person and them not getting the same thing out of it that you will because they're not familiar with the concept and the characters and everything. You need to be familiar with who James Bond is as a person, the world he lives in, the way he treats people, the way he talks to people, the friends and allies and villains he's encountered. So when you watch that movie and the things that happen in that movie really hit home for you in a way that will not impact you the same way if you just pick up that movie willy-nilly and watch it for the first time without any idea who this Bond is or what the world is or anything like that. So moving forward, watch a couple of other Bond films. Watch GoldenEye, like I said. Maybe watch some of the new Daniel Craig movies since they've rebooted the world so you can get used to that introduction. And when you're ready, pop in On Her Majesty's Secret Service and you will have a good time with it. Now, right off the back, any theories or beliefs that people have that George Lazenby wasn't good as James Bond and that's why he only did the one movie, that is incorrect. There's a lot of behind-the-scene dramas if you look into it. George Lazenby, the Australian, was a model before he really got into acting, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service may have been the very first acting thing he did, if not one of the first. And he was advised by his agents, and this is me looking into all the reports and interviews from all the different players in this thing, that it should not be ideal for him to stick around in a franchise with a character when you're right out the back gate acting. You don't want to lock yourself into doing these movies right when you're beginning. You want to go out there and try a few different things, and then maybe you'll come back to it one day. I don't know if that's good advice or bad, because George Lazenby didn't really have a spectacular movie and TV career. In fact, I'm not really familiar with a lot of stuff that he has done, if any. However, I've met the man. He's been to one of the many supernova pop culture events that come to Australia, and he seems like a very friendly, positive person who has nothing but appreciation and joy for his very limited time in the Bond world. So that's what you need to know going in. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is not bad. He was not bad in it, and he did not leave after that movie because of negative reactions or anything like that. All behind the scenes decisions, all stuff that has nothing to do with the movie itself. Why is On Her Majesty's Secret Service the best Bond film? Pretty much it is a self-contained story that succeeds where not many other Bond films have done in the past, which is humanizing James Bond as a person. Now, as we go forward and we talk about all the other different Bond actors, specifically Sean Connery and Roger Moore, you're going to find that as much as I love the movies, my opinion of Bond the man himself varies, depending on who I'm talking about. Because in a lot of these movies, it's very obvious that Bond's attitude to other people, specifically women, that they are means to an end. He doesn't have a lot of personal connections or attachments to anybody. He's not above using other people to achieve the mission to save the world, yada, yada, yada. And of course, every romantic entanglement that he has in every movie is either used against a villain to seduce them, to get something out of them, a victim that he also has to seduce to get information from, or a sidekick who he seduces by the end of the movie just for them to be completely gone when the next movie starts up again. On Her Majesty's Secret Service does very good at showing who is Bond as a person. We get some backstory to him, we see some information about where he comes from, his heritage, his lineage. The movie Skyfall, its original origins, you do get brief mentions to in this movie, and Skyfall is one of the best Bond films of all time. So there you go, well done film. But what's really great about Lazenby's approach to Bond here is that he is friendly, he is charming, he is likable, he is polite to everybody around him, he saves people with no intent for actually saving if it has anything to do with a mission he's on. In fact, the movie opens with him seeing a woman drowning, and he just goes and saves her. There's no intention to have sex with her once that mission is done. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But you're not watching it going, yes, good. Yes, he's got the sex on the mind. No, he's just trying to save this woman. He looks great. He's got some great outfits with some ruffles on his suits. He's charming, he's polite, he's intelligent. He gets along really well with everybody. And he has a really good motive in the movie. Originally, is to save the world from his nemesis, Blofeld, the main Bond recurring villain that we ever got in this franchise, who of course Dr. Evil from the Austin Powers movie is based on. George Lazenby wasn't above making fun of the role itself. In the opening bit, he does make a sideways talk to the audience that what he was going through had never happened to the other guy. So he basically broke the fourth wall. Instead, Sean Connery didn't have to do this. That's fun. That's great. I like that sort of nod to humor. We as an audience know that this is a different person, that there's going to be a different take. He's even telling us, I'm going to do a different take on this role. If that's okay, we can move forward. One could argue that if it wasn't for George Lazenby embracing the Bond role, but making it his own, James Bond as a film franchise probably wouldn't exist today, because you needed to have actors that were able to take on the James Bond role, but not get stuck up with trying to be who was before. Roger Moore didn't try to be Sean Connery. Pierce Brosnan didn't try to be Timothy Dalton. Daniel Craig's certainly not trying to be anybody that was before him. Very much like Doctor Who. Embracing a role, but using it to make it your own, perfect. And I think George Lazenby did a great job taking Sean Connery's grizzled James Bond, knowing, I don't want to do that, I can't do that, I'm going to play it this way. And regardless of what some people think, it works. What really makes On Her Majesty's Secret Service a great film is the relationship that's at the heart of this movie between James Bond and Tracy, who is his main female relationship in this movie. Now, as I mentioned before, all other relationships in the past, and indeed a lot of relationships in the future, it's all Bond using women for personal gain to achieve the mission. I'm sure they love him. He might appreciate them, but he doesn't love them. This is the first movie that investigates what it would be like if James Bond actually fell for a woman hard and realized that they were more important to him than the mission, than Queen and country. The relationship between him and Tracy is believable, it is beautiful, it is lovely. And, side note for people who are looking for reasons, any reasons at all to watch the movie, Tracy is played by a young Diana Rigg, who, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you will know her as Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, the queen of sassy one-liners, zingers, insults, fantastic lady. You can see a lot of young Queen of Thorns in Tracy's character as well. So maybe Diana Rigg is just the feistiest, coolest woman on the face of the planet. Who can say? It is very nice to see Bond appreciate a woman, fall in love with her, go the extra mile for her. It has not happened in other movies before. They may have tried to repeat it in movies since then, but not to the same successful effect as on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I will not spoil how things turn out in this movie. Suffice it to say that, like most Bond films, as we move on to the next movie, a lot of what's happened in the previous movie is forgotten. There is a very loose connection between movies. But unfortunately, after this movie, we move along with business as usual. To sum it up completely, On Her Majesty's Secret Service and George Lazenby as a James Bond is sort of a thank you, an offering to Bond fans that this is what is good when everything comes together and works perfectly. I cannot advocate it enough. I think George Lazenby was one of the best Bonds that was ever done, and I think this movie is one of the best films, if not the best film that was ever done. But you hear a lot, you look in the newspapers when a new Bond film comes out and they rank the Bond films, and you can see people's opinions, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service seems to get a bad rap because of that specific example, that it's the only movie where Lazenby played Bond once. Every other Bond actor has played him at least twice. It is a fun movie, it is a funny movie, it is action-packed, it's got great romance, great villainy, a lot of influence taken into the Austin Powers movies, so that's fun to look for as well. George Lazenby is great, Diana Rigg is great. If GoldenEye was not filled with my favourite actors and one of my favourite stories, this would definitely be my favourite Bond film. That said, to be in the top 5 is a fantastic achievement and something that should not be taken lightly. And that's really it for George Lazenby. We can't really talk about him too much because he has only done the one Bond film, but what a film, hey? Towards the end of next month, we'll revisit this topic again. I'll pick another Bond actor and we'll look into it. The great thing about each Bond actor is they've brought something very different to their portrayals and the movies that they've been in, to varying degrees of success and quality. And I look forward to coming back to you with the next Bond actor and really diving into whatever they did, whether I like them or not. Spoiler alert, some actors I love, some I do not. It'll be up to you to see if you can figure out which ones I'm going to support and which ones I'm going to go, But as with most Spliced In Later things, I don't hate any Bond film. I enjoy them all, just some more than others. When I return next week, I know I promised a Marvel month. I don't know if we'll ever get it because the Marvel world is constantly expanding. There's a lot going on. But I would like to give it an attempt, so maybe not a month, but next week we'll be going back to our top 10 listings and I will be bringing you my top 10 Marvel Cinematic Universe films. So the Avengers, Iron Man, Thor, Cap, Ant-Man, the Guardians, all of them. Have a look into those movies. See if you can decide which ones are your top 10. And then we'll all tune back in together next week to see how much I annoy you all with my pickings. Because I'm sure my opinions will be very different to others. And I look forward to that. It's always good. We need different opinions, so we've got something to talk about. Until then, I hope you're all doing okay out there. I hope you are surviving and thinking positive and doing everything you can to get through these difficult times. Here's an idea. Maybe watch On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I guarantee you it will lift your spirits in certain areas. Again, watch the movie. I don't want to spoil anything. But until next week, I love and appreciate you. As always, you've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.